Good morning, everyone.
Good
Welcome
morning.
all to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss all matters related to HR and related services. I'm your host, Anthony Kuria, and I'm so glad that you could spend your time to join us this pretty cold July Saturday morning. But we are on fire right here. We believe that we will be a blessing to you. Today, I have with me my co-host, our in-house HR consultant, Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zipporah.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning.
Yes, and I am with, and our other guest is a good friend of mine, who I always look forward having time together to chat, to talk about business and stuff, and even a coach, as it were, to me. His name is Frank Kitonga. Frank, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Yes. Unfortunately, we forgot to put the title for Frank's what Frank really does. But as we go on, we will give you his what exactly he does. But now, before I continue, it's good for you to understand what is the Aurum podcast all about, and who is Aurum. Well, Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, and we are a human resource and risk advisory company, helping companies solve difficult human capital and business solutions. Our mission is to be the one-stop HR solutions provider for growing companies, leveraging on technology, people, and the law. And we aim to deal with pain points that most SMEs confront, which include legal application and statutory compliance, issues to do with inefficient and ineffective business processes, and also managing talent. That's a big, big deal. The solutions we offer include compliance with labor laws, streamlining our clients' HR processes, and providing financial indemnity solutions to various business risks. We offer services such as HR outsourcing, HR administration, training, payroll administration, risk advisory and assessment, and training. And we are glad that you could join us. Yes, Frank, I can see the proper title has been put. The Country Director, Nehemiah International, Kenya. And Frank, probably you could tell us more about what Nehemiah is all about. There are people who are logging in for the first time. They have never heard of Nehemiah International Kenya. Kindly take us through what you do.
Well, thank you, Kuria. First of all, really appreciate your hosting me. Thank you, Madam Zippy. Thank you so much. Nehemiah Project is an organization that seeks or supports kingdom businesses globally. Our role is to influence, empower through training, coaching, providing funding, building a community that supports the kingdom businesses to grow. And we do that one business at a time, transforming the marketplace for Jesus Christ. That's what we are about.
Wow. That's a very concise definition. And viewers, I would like to tell you, Aurum Consultants has benefited from the Nehemiah Project International Ministries. We have undergone kingdom training on how to run business. Remember, I'll never forget one thing, Frank, you told me the first time, that work is worship. That one transformed my life. Work is worship. What happened in the Garden of Eden continues to this day. And with that, that is why we have reached here. I'll have to say this podcast is a fruit of what we underwent in the training for kingdom, being biblical entrepreneurs and transforming Aurum into being a kingdom business. Today, we want to talk about employee discipline management. And this one, the last two sessions that we've had, as one of the big time TV TV anchor says, it was smoking, it was hot. We had questions being asked, we had people referring to things. I even gotten into conversations off studio, people telling me, man, I love that topic. Why didn't you talk it earlier? And today, Frank, with your vast experience, 20 plus years in corporate management, this is something you must have grappled with. This is not theory to you. It's something that you've grappled with on a big scale. And one of the things that I've been curious about, and I've been looking forward to having this discussion with you and Zippy, is to ask this question, because I keep hearing this question every now and then. Why does it always seem to be a challenge for employees to understand set rules and regulations? Yes, I mean that's a question that I want us to begin this discussion. Why is it so difficult for? Is it the human psyche? What is it?
I like that question. Are you starting with me or with Zippy?
With you.
Go ahead.
You are the one with 20 years corporate management experience, my friend.
As I was preparing for this, it's interesting. Some of the books I felt preparing for, one of them is Good to Great. They show examples of companies that moved, that were great, and some companies that were good companies. The key behind any successful business is not great ideas, is not powerful leaders, and those are critical. It is discipline. Discipline, other people will call it execution, and Anthony will call it you're not a saying, you are doing business. But discipline is the key to business. If you can be disciplined around the systems of marketing, disciplined around HR systems, disciplined around your growth models, your sales, your finance, then you can really grow a business. Now, how does that tie to this? If an organization has no discipline, it cannot stand. And there is the basis of ensuring we have policies and processes so that we can order the organization to go to the right place. So therefore, now I'm coming to your question. I wanted to give it just a background a little bit to what is the basis for this conversation. Outside discipline, we are a mess. So why is it therefore a challenge? Now, generally speaking, humanity, we are very, we just want to rebel, or we just want to say, you want to say, no, let's not do it that way. It's like, have you seen with your children, whenever you say, nobody was bothering with the problem until you say, nayo maua msikanyage. Ha! It's like, maua, is it? Kanyage.
Yes.
Suddenly something rises inside you. We are not going to go biblical on you, but it's like there's a thing inside that says, so generally speaking, people are good, but people sometimes don't want to be forced into a system. Now the problem is this: if you never have a system and enforce it, guess what? Your business will fail. So I've given you two answers. I've said why a business must do it, but people are people. People don't want to follow rules. Why? It's a nature thing, in my view, but it's also lack of knowledge. When you don't understand how following this policy ties into my being here, into fulfilling my calling, into achieving the goals of the organization. Lack of knowledge is one of the biggest issues that cause people not to be aligned in what to follow. So because they don't know, so therefore knowledge becomes a key correspondent. But you know what the reason? And I'm trying to keep up with the question, challenge to understand the set rules. So I'll just say, first of all, it's just people feel the human thing to do kikitu taki, but also just knowing it.
Wow. That's a very good point. Zippy, what's your take on the same?
I'm just, loving how Frank has put this. Man is naturally rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's wow. A lot of times we don't think we are rebellious in nature. Even the good people don't think naturally they're rebellious. But the moment someone puts a boundary around what you're doing, you start questioning those boundaries. And I think one of the reasons, again, to just come back to the question, employees, struggle to understand set rules, is because probably as management, we don't even understand our own rules. We are
Yeah.
confused, the employees in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So the big question would be, as management, do we understand the rules that we have set and what they are supposed to achieve at the end of the day? Um, a lot of times when we bring in an employee to an organization, we take them through a process of induction. Again, sometimes this process tends to get overlooked, or it tends to be done in a way that probably will not help the employee understand the norm, the culture, the way of doing things in that organization. And what happens as they settle in and they move along, they adapt to a culture, they adapt to a way of doing things. So when you start talking about some rules that they did not understand prior, it starts becoming an issue. So I think it's important for us to first ask ourselves as business people, what kind of rules do we need to have in place? Are they necessary? If they are necessary, then how are we going to implement these rules in the organization that the employee will not just feel, I've been put in a box. They will understand why we are doing what we are doing and how it ties down to the vision, the mission of the organization. And I think it takes us back to what we always talk about as business people. Are we helping our employees understand our reason for existing? What problem we are solving out there? And with that problem we are solving out there, then what are the boundaries we need to work within as an organization as we deal with people with people out there? And I think Frank has been in the industry or in the business industry for a long time, and he will attest to different companies probably have different set of rules, but there are some rules that actually cut across board. And again, when I think about the Bible, and God is interesting, he put boundaries in our lives. He gave us the holy book that guide us every day. And why is that? It takes us back to what Frank has just said about man being naturally rebellious. And, the need of having set rules. But it's not just about having those rules, but helping the employees understand these rules and implement the same. And I think the other thing, again, Frank has alluded, is policies. You have policies in place, or you don't have policies in place. Now, let's assume you have these policies in place. Are they implemented? Are you implementing these policies? Because a lot of times, there's a lot of hullabaloo about we need policies in place. We write all these policies, very nice policies, but what happens? They never get implemented. So when they don't get implemented, what happens? The employees get lost in the process. So sometimes we are talking about policies that are in place, but when you go down to where the employees, they don't understand what you're talking about. So again, going down to implementing what it is that we are saying we have put in place as an organization is critical.
Wow. Lady Frank, you've really brought it out. Zip, you've really brought it out nicely. Frank, I like the fact that you've said people need to understand why are we doing what we are doing. I like using my past experience as to bring to conversations. I remember in my time that I was working in the banking industry, once we understood why, for example, when cash is being brought into a branch or being taken out of a branch, the set procedures that have to be followed. Because trust me, every time you see that Kivan entering into a branch, there is a very strict process that is followed in terms of how do you repatriate money into the building of the branch or out. That's one example. Other examples could be the way we would deal with salary processing. Once we were told why we follow the procedure, and it was repeated a number of times, trust me, all employees fell into line. We need to send money to head office because we have excess cash. Everybody knew what to do. Unless you have an efficacious agenda, everybody knew what you're supposed to do. They would even tell you, where? What are you doing? Stop. Things are happening. So there was that very clear. So it's very true that once you clarify to employees why we are doing what we are doing, why we have to have boundaries of certain kind, then unless somebody has their own agenda, most of the time, any right-thinking person will follow procedure closely. As to our viewers, please send in your comments. We would love to hear your comments, your views. Send them your comments and your views. We would love to incorporate them in our discussion, even as we continue. Now,
Anthony, that's something I've remembered, and maybe Frank can contribute to this based on experience as an employee and also as an employer. One of the biggest challenges, again, I've seen when it comes to employees understanding set rules and regulations is bad practices, and a lot of times orchestrated by the management, where rules have been set. We have told our employees these are the rules and the regulations, and sometimes employees are actually following these rules. But as management, actually, we break these rules often. We do things contrary to what we have set to be done. And this actually sets a bad precedence. And now we start having indiscipline issues because the employee is following what you do. It's like what we say with children. Children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do. And that's the nature of human beings. They will actually do what you say, what you're doing. And taking an example is like you tell employees they need to be at work at this time, but you are always coming to work late. The truth is, at some point, that culture is picked up by the employees and they actually implement what you're doing. So again, that is something I think I have picked that sometimes becomes a bit of a challenge.
Completely agreed. The people are influenced absolutely by what you do. In Good to Great, one of the challenges there is when you're setting up a new team, there's always like an old team. So it's an ongoing operation. When you're setting up a new team, there's always this number 2 or number 3 is very powerful. And it's like a guy who holds the entire organization together when you become CEO and you're the guy who is now running. Now, this second person may always feel they are above the law. Generally speaking, they'll feel other people are, but I'm above the law. One of the advice for Good to Great is fire that guy. If you do not fire your best friend in the organization who is a senior or almost to you, but continues to break the rules, if you don't fire that guy, you will never convince the organization that this rule is important enough. It is the owner of the business or the senior-most person who actually owns policies. The way they take them in and implement, that is what actually tells the rest of the organization, Ikitu is serious. This thing is serious. If so and so can be fired from this company, this thing is serious.
It can be bad.
Until we get there. So now they're not just looking at you. They're saying you are enforcing policies that are unenforced or not enforced are good papers written in the office. They are nice. Have you ever seen this company you go and say, these are our core values? Yes. Integrity. And I don't know why they always put integrity. And then somebody says, unajua hii kitu tunaanza unaonaje hii kitu and you're talking to the director. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you give birth to who you are. So that's a dangerous statement right there. So my view, I completely agree with you, Zippy. This thing of not doing, In fact, let me say it. If you will not follow the policy you set, don't set. Just live in the jungle. You understand? As just live in a paperless or policy-less place if you're not willing to enforce it, because it lacks credibility if top management is not doing it.
Powerful. Wow.
Wow. And you know, Frank, actually, that is very powerful. And I think today we are talking to employers. A lot of times, I think policies are seen like a thing of HR. HR needs to implement, HR has not implemented. But the truth be said, if the management is not in it, if they are not backing up HR, is efforts that are these are efforts that are not going to bear fruit at the end of the day. We have to lead from the top.
It's true. We call it management buy-in. And you know what, to be sincere, it's not only HR. If you're going to bring a new system, IT, management doesn't support it, it won't work. We're going to do something new about procurement policies. Management doesn't support it, it will be on paper, it won't work. Basically, top management must support something, own it, and then cascade it to anyone else to do it. Otherwise, if you are the one who flouts all your procedures, forget it. Everybody knows they won't do it, or they'll do it when it's convenient. You see, policies must be moved from paper to life, to culture. Unless they become culture, they will never really be utilized. Because you know what? You can't legislate every single action. You can only, a policy gives the spirit of a thing. So if you don't do things, that's when you enter into discussions with the employees and you are removing papers and you say, I say me evil, in a semi. When you get there, you lost that thing long time ago. Because if you implement it correctly and you bring the spirit of the thing and you're following through to it's being done well, and going beyond the paper into this is the spirit of the thing. This is this is the heart of the thing. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to take the company. That's why I come here at 7:15 every day instead of 9 o'clock when we open the doors. You see, when people understand your heart and what you're trying to do, guess what? They will implement it in the same level. So you will not end up going to look at by the time you get here, Iliaribika, it went bad. And that's because management buy-in is not there. And there's no other bigger place than this place around HR.
Wow. Guys, today, as I said, it will be hot here. And indeed, it is getting hot, as Frank has put it. Management buy-in, whether it is in procurement, whether it's issues to do with HR, whether it's issues to do with IT, whether it's issues to do with accounting, whether it's issues to do with marketing, issues to do with sales. And today we are speaking to employers. We are speaking to those managers who hire. You've got to get it done. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, you've actually, the discussion has gone even to what I wanted to ask next. And you've already answered all the things that I wanted to ask, because I wanted to find out what are some of the pitfalls employers need to avoid while handling employee discipline matters. And you guys have already answered everything. Issues to do with, if I got it right, issues to do with management buy-in, issues to do with you as the employer, as the CEO, following the rules that you have set for everybody else. Thirdly, Frank, you put it very nicely, from good to great. That number two, who is, because he or she started the company from scratch with you, and they have reached a point where you guys are now muna prepare. He's thinking, you know what, these rules apply to these minions who came the other day. Me, I can operate at a stratosphere. Now, the idea is the one who is sitting at the CEO office needs to make an example of this KYM, who is thinking they are gods. And what else? Issues to do with, setting, being true to what you said you'd do. If you're saying we need to be here, the way Zippy said, we need to be here at 7:30. and you're the one who comes habitually at a certain time, or you're talking about integrity. We are, the way Frank you've said, you find rules written somewhere. We are a corruption-free zone. Then you go there and unaambiwa boss kabahasha lazima kaingie, and the one who's telling you that is. So those, I believe, those are some of the pitfalls that we are talking about, that we are hinting about. So let me go now then, since you have already answered that one.
Anthony,
another,
actually,
yes, go ahead.
Just to contribute to this particular question,
Mhm.
I think this is one of the areas that lead to a lot of litigations. This particular question here.
Mhm.
And when employers are having to handle discipline issues, again, looking at it from an experience, because I always like looking at things from an experience perspective.
Mhm.
You will find if an employee has an indiscipline issue, because these things will happen. Let's take an example: an employee has stolen or they have mismanaged resources, for instance.
Mhm.
As the head of the organization, how do you react to this? How do you behave towards this employee? A lot of times I've seen us react from a place of emotions.
Mhm.
We become too emotional. We don't think through actually the situation at hand. And we act based on those emotions. And this actually can lead to a lot of challenges. I've seen situations where, as an employer, I use language that is not appropriate
Mhm.
in the moment. And you have to remember, as a business person, if your rights have been, infringed by an employee, you'll be upset.
Sure.
And it's a natural reaction. But what do you do with that reaction? Because how you handle that, how you handle yourself, can make or break how the discipline management is going to be handled and what the outcome of that would be. I've seen situations where, as an employer, I start engaging employees who don't need to be in the circle of this particular indiscipline issue. So, in other words, we start getting into a situation where this issue becomes such a big mountain, it becomes almost impossible to resolve in an amicable way. So, again, I would actually say this is something that probably we need to talk a little bit more, if Frank would agree with me, because I believe actually this leads to a lot of litigations.
Let me tell you, when you have power, ZP, when you have power, hey, you better have emotional regulation. Because ninaweza kufuta huyu mtu kazi saa hii.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but power gets to your head, Bona. Power. I never want to see you here again. From chukua pesa yako na upitia kwa accounts, akupea pesa yako out nina.
Yeah.
Yes.
That moment of feeling that superpower, it could cost you so much. So much. You know what? Litigation is horrible. But you know what? One of the worst things is to lose the right person who would have been the core to go. Employee turnover rates that are high do not help an organization. Let me tell you guys, one of the toughest things is to get a good employee. I can be as super as I want to be, but if I can't get a team to surround me to deliver what the vision is, what it is, you can't do. Oh, you can't. But even the business itself. So before you show the power, so before you do that, think about it. As in, you guys imagine. I'm sorry to use, but I know this is very business. But Jesus gets into a place where people are doing something wrong. He goes to sleep first before coming tomorrow with the whatever.
The whip.
Yeah. So there's a thing about before you decide to release the whip, allow a process, preferably a prescribed process, be followed. That if this ever happens in this organization like this is what we do. You know what? Even keeping good people will be easier. Because you know what? You can misjudge a situation.
Mm-hmm.
We are imperfect. We are people. Yes, I'm the owner of the business. Or yes, I'm the top manager. But I may look at a scenario and understand it this way. By the time I realize what was the real scenario, when I understand the context, I already chased this guy. Yet this was the guy who everyone decided to frame to look like the thief. Yet this was the guy who was protecting. But if I allow a process to check in, then I'm able to be protected as a business or as an individual who owns the business. And so this thing of, and I don't know if you have discussed that previously, Zipu, that one of the pitfalls is you go into these scenarios without a written prescriptive process of what do we do when this happens? What do we do when this happens? What do we do when this happens? And know that for yourself, so that in that heat of the moment, react correctly. As in, I don't know if this is when we start giving our examples.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have met until you wonder, oh my God. Let me tell you, firing, by the way, is not easy. So sometimes we need anger. You need a kidney. Because it's not easy to fire. It's very hard to make a decision. This one, go. Not easy. It's hard. It's actually easier to just ignore. And that's the problem. So we found the procedures both ways. We found the procedures where we know this is a person for going and we don't take the system right in the early. So what happens? We don't fire at the right time. So we feel, so it's okay. Now when the time comes, guess what happens? Now because I'm angry and I didn't do the right thing yesterday. Now I now unleash the whip. And now I end up in court. This prescriptive process that says, I can tell you, when somebody is late consistently for 3 days, when somebody does not come to work, they have absconded duty. Or when somebody is caught in a sexual harassment scenario, when somebody is caught in a theft, what do we do? What does dismissal with a system, what does summary dismissal look like? What does an investigative process look like? Unless we have prescribed this thing, you're likely to get into the thing, Bwana, and you have no clue what to do. I was in a business, we were running a business where, my friend, we were in court every week. You know, I remember landing into this fantastic company and I'm like, yeah, Mr. President, sir, I'm right here. I'm going to change this company. The first thing that hit my desk was lawyers' demand letters asking for a court day. As in, they're saying we'll be in court in this day if I don't get an answer. I'm like, why are you bringing me problems that have nothing to do with me? And you know what happened? My predecessor, fire on the spot. That not knowing that gets into so much trouble. There's a small thing, show cause letter. As in, do you know what I realized? Forget ever going to labor court and to whatever. You follow the system. Even the employee knows there's so much evidence against them. They never go anywhere. So you actually forget. In 2 years' time, we had completely forgotten what it was to get a legal demand letter or labor office calling us. It was normal. In fact, that labor office became boring because there was it was our company that used to go there. It became boring because you set up a very clear process on when this goes wrong, this is what we do. So I've had people who've stolen. They have stolen, right? Kwanza salespeople who receive actual cash. Wameiba kabisa. And then you catch the guy. And they say, no, I've not stolen. For some reason, somebody who's done something wrong still needs to see that there's evidence against them. Why do you need, you stole, just go. Resign and go. No. you know you stole, but you say, where is the evidence? Where? So you see, now when you follow the process is, number one, I don't know if you guys have talked about what process to follow. I'm assuming you have. But the point I learned is,
we are actually going to have Frank, sorry, we are actually going to have a podcast on that, the disciplinary
okay.
process. Yeah.
So you come next time and hear that process.
Yeah.
But today, let's talk about just the emotions around it and the system. If you can suck up your emotion and follow the process, you're actually passing a message to that good employee who is in the office, saying, we are an equitable company. We are a fair business. If anything ever happened here, we will not react. We will take care of you. And you know, there are times moving from one business to another is not an issue of money. It's an issue of, hey, me kampuni yetu inaenda mahali. Ask guys the way this, because most times we get fired as employers is not the company that is bad. It is me who has been fired by my employee because of my, because of my whatever, my overreactions and stuff like that. This emotional regulation, you guys know we do it in Identity and Destiny. It's a critical area. Don't be full of your power. Don't be full of yourself. If you can, follow a system. You will keep yourself out of court and you'll keep the good people.
Wow. Zippy, you have something to add?
Just to pick on what Frank has said about process, I think one of the biggest problems or challenges with employers is because sometimes the process can be lengthy. And here, like Frank has said earlier, when you have to deal with someone who has stolen, for example, and you know this person has stolen, you are torn between keeping this person while doing your investigation, following the process, and eventually probably having to terminate them. And as an employer, you're wondering, do I need to be paying this person while they have actually stolen from me? And the truth is, if you avoid that process, you will end up in court. Because I don't know who came up with this saying, you're not guilty until proven guilty. So even if you have caught me red-handed, the truth is you have to still follow the process, which can be lengthy, but it's the safest option for you.
Wow.
And Zippy, before Tony takes over, you can, if there is a serious, like sexual harassment is a serious issue, you can actually request somebody for mandatory leave, which you need to provide for yourself. Say, we don't know the truth about this thing. Give us time to investigate. We are paying your salary, but give us time. That's 5 days.
That's where the pain is. That's what the pain is with employers. I'm paying you. I've sent you home. You're not working. I'm doing investigation and I'm paying you for it. Okay, and as an employer, why should I be paying for you?
Yeah, so if you decide not to pay, you will pay so highly. Let me tell you, this thing of going to labor court, when the employee is awarded damages, that salary you are refusing to pay, by the time, let me tell you, people haven't experienced what it is like, but you end up, sometimes in some cases, I remember in TZ, when you go there and you go and discipline them. By the time you finish that case, you pay them 12 months of salary.
Wow.
And that's very difficult. Back to you, Tony. Sorry, tumeongea sana.
That is the purpose of our podcast. We, and I'm sure many of our listeners are, especially people who are in business or who are aspiring to be in business. This is something that they are learning, that there are pitfalls when handling employee discipline. That there is a set procedure that is supposed to be followed. For most of us, we imagine, because we have watched Donald Trump and his podcast there, and his whatever, that you're fired. You think that is the way you're going to operate, my friend. That is TV reality show. Here we are dealing the Kenya reality business show, where people know their rights, where the law has been set on following procedures. Following that, there is a procedure for hiring. You may choose not to follow it, that's your problem. But when it comes to time of discipline, you've got to follow procedure. And one thing I want to tell employers, Now they are business people. It is not difficult to follow the law. As Frank has just said, put aside your emotions. Bring a process that is actually entrenched in law. And if you don't know the process, you can get in touch with us here at Aurum Consultants. That's our bread and butter. As Frank has just said, alluded to, there was a season he was in very serious trouble. He landed on his new job. He's the country director, and he's finding himself with litigation. And he was a wise man. He engaged Aurum Consultants, and we were able to sort him out through the process. And as he has just said, afterward, for 2 years, he did not see the labor office. Watu walikuwa wanatenda madhambi, but procedures were being followed. People exit. They have no recourse. They have been proven guilty. Maisha inashika sambamba. I can see our time is really gone. In fact, we have really even passed. I don't know whether Frank can be available soon. I know between me, him, and Zippy, we'll discuss about this. But we still have a lot to discuss about employee discipline management. And yeah, I've gotten a hint that Frank will be here, and it will be good because I have many other questions, Frank. I would want to tap into, on behalf of our listeners and our business people and our listeners and the business people who are there, the entrepreneurs, the people who run business. I'm sure they have a lot of questions they want to understand. How do you handle, for example, how do you ensure that this issue of discipline management is not an issue? For example, they would want to know, then what is these procedures you guys are talking about? How do you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? What is this procedure? Is it something magical? How do you do it? If you want to know more, please log in next week. We'll be right here. Would love to continue bringing you to this conversation to enable you understand and appreciate the fact that, yes, discipline is an issue. You as management have to be seen to be following procedures. You cannot be telling people not to steal, and people can see you taking petty cash from your, asking for petty cash, or abusing per diems, abusing that process of per diems. If you are the sales manager and you want to discipline your own people, if you are the top management, you've got to be seen to be following the mission and vision of the company, the values of the company. All these things, we'll keep discussing them. And if you would like to get to know more, get in touch with us by the contacts at the bottom of the screen, by phone, by email, by LinkedIn, by WhatsApp. We are all available. We are ready to assist you. So, Frank, very briefly, what's your closing remarks?
I had a very sad story. This guy, I used to run a farm, a chicken farm, and this guy stole 3 chickens. 3 chickens. So first of all, and he just lied about it. He just, no, I was the story. So I remember in our systems, we will say that during proceedings, we will record proceedings. And this guy denied, so we done a very good investigation, who saw him, where, how, and we brought the guy and asked him the questions. He denied, he said, and he denied on video, on whatever, recording. So we brought the guy who they stole the chicken in the room. The guy was like, I've been caught. Said, so this guy was one of those of labor court guys who was going to fight because you have to produce the chicken and the chicken is in the stomach. So what are you going to do? So we brought the evidence and, it was all recorded, whatever. Even the evidence between this one, we recorded it. And, that process was so clear. And no issues after that. That guy loved this job. He actually really enjoyed it. For whatever reason, he decided. My sad story was this guy didn't last a long time outside this job. He actually died. I remember thinking, did I do the right thing?
Wow.
Did I do the right thing? But you know what protected me? I never decided on my own to fire the guy based on an emotion. There were my managers who were involved. We went through the process. You know what? We even send the wife a very good thing to take care of her, of her. And I
After the
remember
guy
saying,
passed on.
you don't want to go back and you did somebody wrong or were just outright unfair. You got the wrong person. Do the system. It will enable you to set standards for your business and will allow your business to grow. Our business grew 400%.
Wow.
Put those systems, as in, and as the business grew, I dealt with much more serious problems. Next time I come back, guys, I'll tell you about when they stole a whole truck of maize and what we did.
Wow.
This has been a good time. Thank you guys for having me.
From 3 chicken to a whole truck.
Yes.
Guys, you've got to come back. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to come back. We'll get Frank back here this month. This month, we're discussing employee discipline management. And we'll have Frank back. We'll decide whether it is coming weekend or the other one. But whichever it is, we'll have him come back plus other guests, and we'll continue discussing this issue of disciplinary management. Because whether you are an employee or whether you are an employer, you will go through this process at one point or the other. So it's important to learn how to do it. And especially for our business people out there, this is very important for you to get. So without further ado, Zippy, anything before we close?
Thank you, our viewers. Thank you, Frank, for being here. Your insights are always very, very appreciated. I would say if you're out there, you're struggling with processes, you're struggling with how to implement the same, that's why we are here. Frank is a testimony of how we've been able to support him and got him out of court, and I believe we can help you too.
Thank you, Zippy. That is what we do. So next time, next weekend, next Saturday, God willing, we'll be right here from 9 a.m. Kindly join us, and we'll continue discussing employee discipline management. Thank you very much. God bless you.